Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Greer, CEO of Secure Content Technologies, and I am here today with Kris Wayman, the Field CTO of Binary Defense. Welcome, Kris.
Thanks for having me back, Karen.
Absolutely. So this is the third in our series, and we're going to be talking today about building a security capability that you own. So we've covered the whole flexible modern solution path that people need to think about, but I really want to focus on the strategic payoff. And you talk about building maturity you get to keep. What does that look like? And why is that really such a big differentiator, which I know that it is?
I'm very sympathetic to anybody looking for security in the market today. It doesn't matter if it's product or service. Like, you can literally cover the name on collateral and everybody says the same buzzwords and things. And so it's hard to understand where there is true differentiation or value, or honestly why you may go with a provider versus a different provider. And so for us, one of those things, when if I have 60 seconds in an elevator, we talk to somebody about this. We in the market have largely seen a lot of providers create what I call this abstraction layer, right? You've got a layer where all the magic happens, and you send all your stuff to it, and all the magic happens. And then if for whatever point you break up with that provider, because it happens, right? New leadership, dissatisfaction, just want to see what else is in the market. That layer goes away. You don't own this. They take their ball and they go home. And what that means is you generally take a step back in your maturity, or at least have to reevaluate, kind of from, you signed a contract here with them, you've had a relationship, and now when you break up, you go back to that point because you didn't get to keep any of that maturity.
Oh,
So for us, it was really important, and we've done this for years. We build that technology down into your tools. So we live in the SIEM, in the EDR, the tuning, and those things. The detection logic that we build into your tooling is largely yours to keep. So you get, through the course of our relationship, when we talk about maturing your security program, it's not just being on a journey together. It's also, what do you get to keep at the end of that relationship? The data strategy, the detection strategy, all that kind of stuff that gets put out in the world. It's built into your tools, and it's therefore yours at the end of that. And so it's about transparency, it's about maturity, it's about really being a good partner. And that's how we would define it. Is when we, for whatever reason, the relationship ends, which nobody likes to talk about. It's weird we're having a conversation about this on a webinar, but it's a real challenge, because most providers, you're no better off at the end of that relationship than you were at the beginning of it. You were fine in the middle, but you're taking that step back.
so what does transparency look like in actual practice? Is the client seeing like all the alerts that are coming to them? Do they have full visibility into all that? And how does that interaction look?
Yeah, it's not a black box. So you're given SIM, let's say use Palo Alto XIM or something, right? The correlation rules, the BIOCs, all that stuff is built down into your tooling, and we don't take away your access. So you can go into your tools and you can see the actual work that we've done. Um, that all is happening, and then that's what we correlate and grab and take out into our workbench. But that's one of the places that we provide transparency, is you can see the work that's actually getting done in your tooling. The other thing that we do is, inside of our reporting and platforms and things, we really try to be as transparent as we can about what we're building and why we're building it. So it's not about more detections is better. It's not about, like, let's just validate by inundating you with a bunch of tickets. It's like, why is there specific value in the things that we're doing, so that you can represent that out to whoever you need to, whether it's your technical team, you've got the technical details, or if it's a board or an executive team or something like that, you've got the real, like, risk reduction. And those are very different conversations. It's a very different level of transparency, but they're both important.
So it's really more about empowerment, not outsourcing, is what I'm kind of boiling it down to. But as an advisor, sometimes I have to then go to a CEO or a CFO and put that into something tangible, like a tangible risk or something that they're going to buy off on from an executive standpoint. Can you maybe give some guidance on that, on customers do that and how I would do that even as an advisor with
Yeah. So
binary defense?
yes, absolutely. So we, again, it's not just let's put as many detections and things into your platform as you can, because that doesn't really represent risk reduction.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it's about return on investment. How are we reducing risk? How are we addressing our organizational risk in the world today?
Hmm.
So I kind of talked about this in our last session is when we look at this, call it a Venn diagram, right? You've got what is your specific potential impact, like an impact event, you have an incident at your organization. What are attackers doing in the world that could potentially impact you? And then um, where is there opportunity to create kind of detections around that and really to reduce your risk? That's where we get into this like targeted risk reduction. And so we talk about it in those ways by doing threat modeling around adversarial behavior. And so we'll look at, hey, Karen, you've got great coverage against Black Basta. Here's the detections that we've worked out against this. Or scattered spider, right? When something ends up on the news, your board or your customers come to you and they say, Karen, we want to know how we're protected against scattered spider. And so it's really important to us as we're building those detections and we're trying to help you represent that to your stake holders, shareholders, whatever it might be, that you can understand where is there risk? Why do I potentially have a higher risk? Why do I have a lower risk? Um, and I think this kind of goes back to transparency. Your risk does not always go down, right? As a provider, um, maybe an unpopular thing for me to show you, but I think it's also important for you to know that like one of your controls is vulnerable or adversarial tactics have changed on a given day, on a given month, your risk may go up. And it's just as important for us collectively to understand that so that we can start to drive it down again. And so it's like when you're trying to think about tangible risk reduction and avoidance and all those things as an executive or as a leader, um, I want to show those things to you in the context of what are adversarials actually doing in the world. And this isn't just playing, TTP blackout with MITRE ATT&CK. It's like, how do I show your risk posture improving? And we're not big fans of arbitrary risk numbers. I don't want to just give you like, hey, you're at 80. I want to show you based on real world, like real threat intel, knowing what I know about how adversaries work. Here's where we think you are in the real world today. And let's talk about, are you missing a control? Is there an opportunity to send more logs? Is there opportunity for us to prune logs potentially? And then have a conversation more about like resilience and building a mature program.
I like that. So if binary defense, which they are, is doing the complex detection and response, in my mind, that opens up the client's IT team to focus on other functions. What types of things would you guide them to focus on when you guys are doing the heavy lifting there? Maybe there's some other things that they can work on their end.
There's so many things, right? And security is a huge topic, especially organizationally when we've got lean teams responsible. So we see a lot of our customers repurposing time for security architecture, hardening, finally getting around to decomming some of these legacy systems and things in the vein of like a vulnerability management or assessment program. Um, a lot of times where I advocate is like, if you're trying to think about what am I going to do with this extra time, as a leader, I would encourage aligning with the business at the top. I don't think we do that enough organizationally and saying security is often seen as a cost center. How do I make sure that where we're rowing as a security program, we're not the office of no, but that I understand business needs inside and out and that my security program is wholly aligned so that when I come to them and I represent the risk and I represent what I'm doing, I can tie it to tangible business outcomes and business needs or business critical systems. And we kind of have a really good view of that a lot of times. It's a technical view, but I think where I see a lot of leaders kind of missing the mark or security programs missing the mark is consistently, like everything you talk about is consistently aligned to business initiatives, strategic work, strategic outcomes, rather than specific technical components. And so sometimes the free time that we free up is just to like relearn how to represent some of this stuff back to your business.
I agree. So if you can put on your security crystal ball for a minute and look out 2 or 3 years, what do you think a mature security program will look like with binary defense and SCT and our clients in the coming years?
Um, there's this debate over best of breed versus platformized solutions. I don't think really that with where platformized solutions have gotten to, there's a lot of some teams are really successful at buying their own tools and stitching them together. But for the vast majority of organizations, it's a pretty ineffective way to go about it. There's so much time spent trying to piece together all of these solutions that I think we're going to see the pendulum swing even more towards platformization. We're going to give that a go again because there's so much more value in it right now with, you talk about time savings. It's not just what we take off your plate. It's now, what do I do now that I don't have to sit and stitch together 12 different tools, normalize the alerts, and like make sure all of the data is captured? When I've got a single platform or a couple of vendors, vendor management gets easier. All of my kind of like procuring and legal and all of that stuff gets a lot easier. And then there's the technical components too of now I don't have to be responsible for validating that like these solutions don't have gaps and I'm stitched together properly, or the automation that I build kind of works in a much more cohesive way. So I think 2 to 3 years, we're going to see mature security programs in that like mid-size and above, people that own their SIEM that want to go that route. You're going to end up with better outcomes because you've kind of rethought what does that modern security program look like.
I agree. So if I'm a business leader listening to you, and they feel kind of stuck in a reactive cycle and want to go down this path of investigating this, what do you think would be the first step they should take with SCT and binary defense?
Don't listen to the sales cycles, right? And like just buy a new tool. And also don't I'll tell you, this is not like what you should do. This is the first two things that come to mind are don't send a PO and don't over index on the FUD. Take a step back and be real about where your program is today, right? So it could be a workshop, it could be a conversation with either of us about where are we today? Let's sit down and have a conversation. And because you and I talk to a lot of different organizations, I can give you the real of you're ahead or you're behind of organizations in your vertical of your size. We often see this, and you guys are here. So that can be helpful, is to just get a kind of a perspective from a trusted party to say, what do you think about our program? What would be some recommendations if you had some opportunity to do that agnostically without a horse in the race? Where would you do that, and how would we benchmark against some of those other things? I think it's a pretty practical place to start. After that, I think it's, putting it on a roadmap and saying, some organizations that you and I talk to are pretty good about having a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year strategic roadmap. But I would say a lot of them, it's much more reactive. And so after you've sat down and had more of a strategy conversation, start plotting out the big rocks that you're going to be able to move in that strategic roadmap. And then talk to SCT about how do you execute on it? What are the things you need to put in place, and how do you really get to the point that you can get from point A to point B? Because that's the hard. It's easy to talk, but that's where I see a lot of people get hung up, is the actual rubber meets the road. I can't see how to get from this to this, and I think that's where you can really help.
That's incredibly insightful. And I think, it's thought-provoking for a lot of people that are watching and struggling with this big mountain of security that they're tackling. I really appreciate your insight and your professionalism in this discussion. It was great talking to you again, Kris.
Yeah, same here, Karen. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. And for anyone who's interested and want to talk further, please, my contact information will be up on the screen. Just give me a shout. We would love to talk to you further about this issue.